Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here, welcome back to the railway. Right, I promised myself that I would never buy another DJM locomotive, but to date I have made an exception. So, no doubt you will remember my review of the infamous Heljan 1361 class. If you haven't seen that video, do check it out up there. Obviously, it was only my opinion, but I didn't think the model was very good at all. I had a lot of problems with mine, and from the polls that I set up on that video, most of you guys agreed with me. A lot of you guys also suggested that I should try the other 1361 class on the market, that is the DJM/Kernow 1361 tank, as you can see here. And so I did that. I ordered this one from Kernow's website. I got this for the bargain price of £69.99, and given the RRP is £135.99, I believe, that is a considerable discount. In fact, the fact that they can sell these models for about half the price calls into question whether the RRPs are reasonable at all. They must make a lot of money selling them at that price. RRP wise, that is £25 less than the Heljan 1361 class, which is obviously quite considerable. Still very, very expensive though, but for the discounted price of about £70, obviously it's much, much more reasonable. Now, it's very, very possible that I won't like the model. The last DJM loco I looked at really disappointed me. I felt that it was over-engineered, not that great a quality, and pretty basic as far as details went. So that's very possible. It is possible that I will feel the same about this, but I have to say props to Kernow for this, because I placed the order in mid-afternoon. The next morning, the loco arrived. Incredibly quick service. Do check them out. I also have an affiliate link to Hatton's for these, so if you want to check out the range of 1361 tanks, you certainly can do that. For now though, really interested to see what this is like. I have no idea what to expect. Lots of people in the comments of the Heljan video told me that this one was better, but I can't take anybody's word for that. I'm going to have to find out for myself. So come with me and we will find out together. Okay, so as you can see, the box that this thing came in is absolutely tiny. And one quite funny thing is that nowhere on the box is the name DJM mentioned at all. I'd be really amused to think that they just didn't put their name on there because of the stigma attached to it, although I'm sure that's not the case. One thing is for sure though, the phrase "setting higher standards" hasn't been plastered all over the box, which is a good thing. At least this product has a bit more of a realistic expectation about itself. Anyway, let me show you the end of the box. So the product code for my version is K2201A. It's a Great Western 1361, and I went for 1361 photographic grey. Yes, I do love photographic grey locos. I know it's a bit of a Marmite livery. Some people really don't like it, but I really do. Yes, they didn't run like that most of the time, but regardless, I really do like it. Okay, so there's not much to see on the box. I've not had mine open yet, so I've not even seen the thing. So let's lift the lid and see what this is like. I'm going to be fascinated to see how this compares. Right, let's take a look at some of these instructions, and I am going to be reading these off camera in a bit more detail. Okay, so this is the Great Western 1361 class saddle tank locomotive instruction sheet. Okay, talks about running in, body removal, accessories, DCC warranty, and there's also a bit of history on the tanks as well. Even though I will give you some in just a second, feel free to pause and read that if you'd like. Yeah, that appears to cover all bases. Like I say, I'm going to read that carefully though, because the DJM locos are a bit finicky, aren't they? I'd like to know whether it includes a coreless motor. Surely it will do though. Okay, so we have an incredibly exhaustive diagram here which shows all of the parts. Look at that, unbelievable. Yes, you can see it's got the trademark DJM over-engineering. Just look at the number of gears we've got there. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 gears. Crikey, crikey. And that's not including the ones from the motor, it seems. Possibly it is. Yes, I'm sure that's going to be nice and quiet with 10 gears whizzing around inside. But no, all jokes aside, you can see what a complex model this is, and it does indeed have a coreless motor. Number 34 there demonstrates. Yeah, not very good, but luckily I do have controllers these days that are not feedback controllers, so I can at least run it on a controller that it was designed for. Okay, are you ready? I'm taking a negative standpoint already, and I shouldn't be because I haven't seen the thing yet. Oh, okay, it's upside down. Fair enough, there it is. Wow, I tell you what, this thing looks great. And I've got to say, the running board looks perfectly straight. My Heljan one was bent, and I didn't mention that, I don't think, in the video, but a lot of people noticed it. It was very obvious in the close-ups. This one looks perfectly straight, which is pretty impressive. Right, let's pull this out then, shall we, and take a quick look. Right, underneath the loco we have a detail pack, and all the parts of it seem to be fitted onto the sprue, which is interesting. It just gives you a bit of a insight into how these things are produced. But yeah, you can see we've got fireman's tools there, it appears, possibly some other parts, and the instructions did cover that. So yeah, look those up if you'd like to. Is there any more? Oh yeah, there is more details inside the box. So let's do this. Let's slide the outer piece off. How are we doing for weight so far? Yeah, it doesn't feel criminally light. It's hard to gauge it until you've actually got the loco and the loco alone in your hands. Okay, right, so look at this. We've got lamps, beautifully little moulded lamps, it must be said, vacuum pipes, and the chain link couplings, sorry, screw link couplings, those are. Quite interestingly, they too are painted grey, which I quite like. I don't think I've seen that before. It's very interesting. Very nice, very nice. Yeah, this is looking good so far, actually, and just looking at the loco from the outside of the packaging, the detail seems to be incredible compared to the LNER saddle tank I've had from DJM. Maybe this will change my opinion on DJM, maybe. I doubt it's going to change my opinion on them mechanically speaking, but where the detail is concerned, it's very possible. It's a shame that they have gone under if that's going to be the case. Okay, so this thing is noticeably quite light. Having grown used to handling the Heljan version, this does feel considerably lighter. However, I will measure it and be sure of that before I tell you that for sure. For the time being though, it must be said, visually, this is already way better than the Heljan version. I'm not seeing any defects whatsoever. I can see that the axles are covered. I'll go into these details a little bit more later on. But given that the RRP of this is £25 less than the Heljan, it ain't looking so good for Heljan right now. Anyway, yeah, that is beautiful. I really do like the look of that. I can't make a comment yet on how the thing's going to perform. If it's anything like my LNER saddle tank, it ain't going to be that great. But I'm not going to tar this before I've even tried it. And visually, this thing looks fantastic. I know there are some common criticisms of this. The cab steps, for instance, are well known to be out of alignment, which isn't acceptable, really. That's a design issue, though. The assembly looks to be really, really good. And no doubt there are people that know more about the prototypes that could point out some more of the inadequacies in the design. But to me, this looks beautiful. So, closer look at this in just a second. First of all, though, here's a little bit of history on the tanks themselves. So the 1361 class was first introduced in 1910 when 5 examples were produced at Swindon Works to the design of George Jackson Churchward. They were intended for shunting duties around docks, and they were therefore designed to negotiate around extremely tight curves. Many aspects of the design were pretty old-fashioned even for 1910, as it was based on an earlier 1392 class, which was built nearly 40 years previously. They supposedly had Allen valve gear, which I'm not really familiar with, round-topped fireboxes and saddle tanks. When more were built in 1934, many of these dated elements were discarded, and such new builds were fitted with bell-pair fireboxes and pannier tanks. Nonetheless, all 5 1361s survived for over 50 years, though only one remains in preservation today. So on the RRP, this model costs £25 less than the Heljan did, and in fact at the discount prices I paid £30 more for the Heljan version than I did for this. And the result is completely the opposite of what you might expect, because this loco makes right almost every single grievance I had with the Heljan locomotive. It is absolutely beautiful. I love it to bits. The only thing that I'm seeing so far that Heljan did better was the weight. This loco, as I thought when I first picked it up, is quite a lot lighter than the Heljan. This one weighs 142 grams and the Heljan weighed 189. That's a difference of 47 grams. That is quite a lot. The key reason for that is that the running plate on the DJM version here is made of plastic, which of course does reduce the weight. On the plus side though, as you can see, the running plate looks much more refined. It's a lot thinner. It doesn't have those horrible scraping marks on it that the Heljan had for some reason, and it even has pipework fitted to it, which is fantastic. That is not where it ends though, because I had a lot of problems with the Heljan version. This one corrects all of them. As you can see, no marks whatsoever on the saddle tanks. They are perfectly pristine. The firebox and the underside of the boiler are all perfectly painted with no problems. The boiler is even lined and it has riveted detail on it. The Heljan one didn't. There's a lot of detail on the covered underside of the boiler there. The pipework underneath the tanks, no glue marks in sight, and there's no flashing around them. They're perfectly moulded and pretty fine looking as well. The various components are fitted together seamlessly without massive gaps. Look at the dome there, that looks absolutely fantastic. A few of the parts do have slightly unsightly seam lines on them. The chimney, for example, does have a little bit of an ugly seam, and the buffers, similar to the Heljan one, do have seam lines on them, but that is probably as far as I can go where the criticism is concerned. Look at the windows on the back. We've got actual moulded bars on the windows there. On the Heljan, no, they were just cheaply moulded into the glazing pieces. Not so with this, it's far superior. The cylinders are beautifully moulded. They didn't even look like cylinders on the Heljan one, and yet on this one, as you can see, yeah, they're perfectly formed, and the cylinders also have lining on them, as you can see. And I've already mentioned that the axles are perfectly covered up. They look really, really realistic, far more so than the other version I looked at. Let's take a look at some of the other aspects of the model then. The decoration is pretty decent. Where applicable, the lining is really, really fine. Can't fault that at all. The running number on the side of the cab doesn't look fantastic. It's not etched or anything like that. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's messy, but it's perhaps not as refined as the rest of the model is. The smoke box is really well done. You can see all the handrails around there are separately fitted, and we do have a separately fitted smoke box dart. All the lamp brackets are perfectly straight. None of them are going off on the wonk, and most of them appear to be separately fitted or at least separately painted, as you can see with the ones on the running plate there. And the running plate is beautifully detailed, as you can see, with lots of riveting going on. The buffer beams look nice and realistic with lots of moulded detail going on. The buffers are only plastic, but as you can see, they are sprung, which is quite nicely done. And the couplings, as you can see, are painted grey as well, which is a really nice touch. It matches the rest of the loco. Whether or not people will like that or not, I'm not entirely sure, but I don't think that's too bad. At least the couplings aren't too noticeable when we're looking at it like this. Now, as I've already mentioned, some people do have grievances with this as far as the accuracy goes. Namely, the steps, as you can see, don't quite match up with the cab, which looks a little bit silly. And some people have mentioned that the handrail on the side of the tank there is at the wrong height. And I'm not sure, I'm not qualified to say who's right and who's not, but it is certainly different to the Heljan version. Let me know which one got it right, DJM or Heljan. I'd love to know what you think. The finer details are very nicely realised, as you can see up on top. We've got lots of very, very finely moulded parts. The whistles and such are just made of plastic, which is a little bit of a shame, but at least the price sort of reflects that with this one. And the safety valve bonnet, while it is just painted plastic, it does appear to be relatively nicely moulded, which is good to see. The top of the cab, look, we don't have that horrible sort of shiny, rubbery effect to it. It's nice and matted, looks really, really realistic. And inside the cab, look at this. This is not like the cab on my other 1361 class. The different components actually stand out. They're not just two-dimensionally moulded onto the back plate. I think some of those parts are separately fitted, and it really does show. The coal load looks realistic. That doesn't look bad at all. It is removable, and there are actually body screws underneath that according to the instructions, but the fitted coal looks absolutely fine. And around the back we have a whole array of separately fitted parts, lamp brackets and other apparatus here, these hooks for holding the various fireman's tools, which did come included, which is really, really good to see. Unfortunately, we don't have the valve gear represented between the frames, so the Heljan and DJM both did that. I guess it would have been a nice extra touch of detail though. And it has a few touches of extra detail that I didn't know the locos had, given my experience with the Heljan one. For example, look at the riveting on the front of the tanks there. Yeah, that was not present on the previous version I looked at, and it just looks so much more realistic and detailed as a result. So I'm really, really happy with this. The build quality is absolutely astonishing. It's completely different to my other DJM loco. It's far better, in fact. If this had been my first DJM loco, I reckon my opinion of the company might be different to what it is. However, I haven't talked about performance yet. It does run a coreless motor, which sends a shiver down the spine of most people. So we'll see how it actually performs. We'll get it down onto the track and give it its first test. So there it is, the beautiful 1361 class down onto the track, and I must say I'm enjoying this one much, much more. It's made me like the class much, much more just because of the quality of the model. The detailing is all very well, but the mechanism is a little bit dodgy in my opinion. It seems that DJM's idea of a good mechanism is a bit different to mine. If I show you the underside, you can see that every axle is driven. In my opinion, that's a little bit unnecessary. It adds a lot of friction with those extra gears. It's more expensive to manufacture. It makes the model noisier, and of course it's less realistic. The coupling rods are no longer actually being used. They are just decorative. Yeah, something about that I don't like very much. It also does its picking up through the axles. It has a sort of split chassis design. Again, I'm not too keen on that. If it runs fine, then that's all okay. But from a maintenance and servicing perspective, it's quite difficult. I prefer just to remove a pickup plate, clean the pickups, the jobs are good. And when it's sort of split chassis like that and the bearings are doing the picking up, it's just a nightmare to clean. I didn't ever manage it with my other DJM loco. At least the disassembly was okay though. It's a little bit involved, but it is doable and the instructions are clear. You remove the coal from the coal bunker. There are 2 screws inside there which allow you to lift up the cab, and that's done quite easily. That gives you access to the inside of the cab, of course, to put some crew in if you like. And then from there you can remove the tanks, which gives you nice and easy access to the motor. I didn't try very hard with the Heljan version, but the access to the motor was not that easy. The motor in here though is a coreless motor, which again I do not like. I've never had a loco fitted with a coreless motor that performs as well as a 5-pole skew wound. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion. I don't use DCC very often, so perhaps that is a factor, but generally speaking, you can't beat 5-pole skew wound motors in my opinion. However, that is all the theory. If it runs well, I'll be willing to forgive it some of its, yes, mechanical discretions, let's call it. Make sure we're on the track correctly then. We appear to be. Set it to forwards, that's it, and let's give it its first bit of juice. I must say the performance from the Heljan, once the 9 screws were sufficiently loosened, and just have a look again at the base plate. Can you see 9 screws there? How many can you count? What's that? Does it look like 2? Yes, I think 2. That seems a bit more reasonable, doesn't it? Anyway, let's do this. Here we go. Bit of power. I mean, it hasn't been running yet, I should say, so it's perhaps a bit unreasonable to expect the thing to crawl. But it ain't doing anything right now. It's up to half speed. Let's give it a nudge. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay. Yeah, it just needed a bit of a kick, I think. Right, let's give that a try again. Crawl. Are we going? Okay, so the crawl is very strong. Just like the Heljan one was, the crawl is very good, I must say. Although, at the moment, it's not going to get a good score because it keeps cutting out. Hopefully that will improve after it's had a chance to run in, although it's pretty dire actually, isn't it, that? The mechanism's capable of doing a crawl, and if it had reliable pickups, I'm sure it would. But at the moment, in its unrunning state, which I should keep stressing because it's not entirely fair to draw conclusions just yet, it ain't that good. However, even though it's not been running, it's just crossed the express point. Let's move the camera so you can see this. It's crossed the express point at a relatively low speed without cutting out. Yeah, that's not so bad, is it? Right, well, we'll get it running. It doesn't sound dreadfully happy. It's a little bit noisy, and it does keep struggling. It has cut out now. Fair enough. Well, we'll get this running in. Performance seems okay, though, to be honest. I'm not 100% keen on the mechanism, but if it's fit for purpose, my score will, of course, reflect that. Okay, half speed, give it a nudge. Let's see how we go. Well, it doesn't sound dreadfully happy. It sounds a bit unhealthy, if I'm being honest with you, but it is smooth, I must say. It's not lurching around, and it isn't cutting out on points and things. So to say it's not been running at this point, I would say I have high hopes for the performance, but only time will tell. I'll be back in a second then, and we'll see if it's any better once it's running and had some lubrication. Okay, running in has concluded then, and I must say, despite the issues with the mechanism, I'm thoroughly impressed with this loco. It shows a good degree of competence that I didn't think DJM had, so serious props for that. It's a good one, it's a good one. Despite being pretty expensive, it's quite a good one. Anyway, the noise is still there. It is quite a loud runner, I have to say. I have lubricated it now, as per the instructions, and the noise is still there. So I do just think it's an overcomplicated mechanism. One thing that is really good, though, is that it's not cutting out on the points. I'm used to seeing the Heljan one just cut out every time it reaches points. That's not the case with this one. Every single point on my layout, anything beyond a real slow crawl, it is absolutely fine on. Okay, so before, when we tested the crawl, it kept stopping, it kept cutting out, even if it wasn't on a point or something like that. So let's see if that situation has improved at all, shall we? Are you ready? Let's give this a go, see if it can crawl. It can, yeah, that's what we found before, and I have to say the crawl from this model has to be the best I've ever seen from a coreless motor. It's a great advocate for coreless motors. Yeah, that is just incredibly good. Let's go a little bit quicker, to prove the point. Yeah, it's really, really, really good. As you can see, it's not say at that speed, not terribly smooth. It does speed up and slow down a little bit. It's not dreadfully well balanced. Again, there's quite a lot of mechanism to this. There are a lot of gears that have to turn to cause this loco to move, which is probably why it's so noisy in a way. But as you can see, the running in period has improved the situation. Even though I prefer pickups, it has to be said, the pickups on this through the axles are working just fine now that it's warmed up, which is really good. Right, I would say that's a good slow speed right there. So let's let her proceed now over the express points. If I just bring you with us. And let's see if it cuts out on the dead zone. I think it probably will do, but we'll see. The wheelbase, I should say, is large enough so that it shouldn't necessarily cut out on the dead zone if all of the pickups were 100% reliable, but we will see. Right, first wheels over it, or on it. No, unfortunately, the back two wheels are not enough to sustain this alone. Let's give it a bit of weight on the back. Oh, see, a little bit of downwards pressure fixed the problem. It should be heavier, I would say. It's too much plastic, not enough metal. Let's do the same again. Let's draw it to the front. Yeah, it comes to live, look, when I push down. I can feel it vibrating. Let's try that again. No, it's truly isolated now, it seems. Yeah, not very good. Those front wheels are definitely off the point. But let me try a little bit of a higher speed. Come on, there we are. I'm hoping at this speed it should do it. Yeah, as you can see, no problem at all. The Heljan was struggling at speeds far higher than that. Let's try that speed. That was still a bit too slow. So yeah, it's not fantastic. I do prefer pickups. I reckon if this had pickups, competent ones, oh, it's alright in reverse. Strange. Does it only do it forwards? Yeah, if it had better pickups, I don't think we'd be seeing this problem. Although, in reverse, it seems much better. How can that possibly be? Let's try it even slower. Ooh. That is very bizarre, isn't it? It's handling the points way better in reverse. That's crazy. How can that be? Same thing forwards. Stops. Yeah, I don't know. Either way, I've said that it's not a very capable puller, so I want to test that. I've set up what I would consider to be a small to medium-sized rake of wagons. I would say the lightweight could be forgiven if it manages those without any problems whatsoever. So let's get it backwards, give it a little bit of juice. Oh yeah, give it a push. And see if the couplings are at the right height, shall we? Fingers crossed. This is another area where the Heljan massively fell down. The couplings drooped to the point of farce. The Heljan cannot couple independently. You have to help it. There's no other way about it. The couplings droop so much. This one, first time, perfect coupling. And if I show you this from the sideways view, you can see the coupling meets the Oxford rail wagon there absolutely perfectly. It's just things like that that DJM have got absolutely right with this model, and it's things like that that made the Heljan example so incredibly frustrating. Okay, here we go. Let's give it a pulling power test then, see if it can manage this up Gordon's Hill. In the meantime though, see which other locos you can spot on the line. I have on the middle line the dreaded Heljan 1361, which on balance I would say is a better performer, but it's let down of course by its pickups, which cause it to cut out almost constantly. But as you can see, it looks quite nice with some Great Western coaches, as you could tell there, very nice. A bit of a jump on the points, as I say. But overall, yeah, the performance is better if that wasn't the case. And then on the middle line, I have another 060 from the Great Western. See if you can spot the odd one out to that theme. There is one on the layout. It is the pannier tank from the Railway Children, with the Railway Children coaches as well. So let's catch up with the DJM 1361, see how that's getting on. So the pulling power for this one is exactly the same as I measured from my W4 Peckett, which is obviously a much smaller 040. However, let's see if it will do this. Like I say, it's not a huge train, that's for sure. But let's see if it's wheel slipping or struggling at all with it. And if not, we will say that it's at least able to haul a somewhat prototypical load. Yeah, that's not a problem, is it? So whatever the wheels are made out of, it must be a decent material because it's gripping the rails pretty well. So this has to be the best DJM loco I've ever seen. Don't get me wrong, it's not amazing. It would need to have been cheaper, had a bit more die cast on it, and had a more competent mechanism to have gotten a better score from me. However, on detail alone, this could have been a real winner if it was the complete package. So let's take a look at some of my ratings then for the DJM 1361 class. The detail, as you can see, I've given a really high score. It was everything that the Heljan should have been for the money it cost. The level of detail was absolutely astonishing. I generally speaking don't concern myself with this sort of thing, but people have pointed out to me that certain elements, the handrails, the steps, were a little bit out of alignment. I usually look at these as little machines in their own right. I don't have that much of an interest in the prototype, so generally speaking I just look at the detail levels, but I can't give a 5-star mark if I know a loco has inaccuracies. But overall the level of detail is incredibly impressive, so I've given it 4.5. The performance is way better than I expected it to be, way better, so I've given this 4-star. It's not dreadfully smooth at the very slowest speeds, but anything above a crawl is absolutely fantastic. The slow crawl is very good, if a little bit prone to cutting out because of the dodgy picking up system, and at the slower speeds it does cut out on the points, but the performance other than that is very good. The pulling power lets it down, it's so light it doesn't haul very much. 12 coaches on straight and level track. Bear in mind that in practical circumstances on a layout that isn't flat and has curves, and let's be honest, that is most of our layouts, it won't manage even that. It's a very light-footed loco, it's a shame about that. The mechanism I've also given 2 stars to. I do not think this is a very sensible mechanism. It's over-engineered, there's no reason to have all-wheel drive on a loco like this. There are more points of failure and it's just more to get out of alignment while you're trying to service the thing. It's unnecessary. The picking up system is a bit silly as well. I don't understand why it has to be done through the axles like that, because it is not more effective than pickups in my opinion, and we've seen that time and time again with locos that do this, from Dapol, from DJM, from anybody else that does it. The Bachmann split chassis locos, I guess. I don't think there's anything wrong with pickups. Manufacturers have used them for years and that's because they work. Why change that? I don't understand it. The coreless motor's not that great either, and the mechanism runs pretty loud, whether that's the motor or the number of gears or both, I'm not entirely sure. The quality though is very good. The build quality was absolutely second to none, far better than I was expecting from a model from DJM. The only thing I would criticise is the lack of die cast, because the weight is really a bit of a problem. The running plate is all plastic, and I think for the price it would not have been unreasonable to expect a bit of metal there, and it was very expensive, which brings us of course onto the value for money. This has an RRP of £139.99 and I bought mine for £69.99. Obviously both of those prices are much lower than the Heljan prices, but I think it's still very expensive when you compare it to other locos such as the Hornby Peckets and the Bachmann E1, I suppose. A lot more metal work, a lot more value for money, a lot more weight, and a better mechanism where both of those locos are concerned. So I've just given this 2.5 star. It's not terrible, we've seen worse, but it's not the best value in the world. Overall then, that is a reasonable score of 6.75 out of 10, certainly much better than I was expecting. It has changed my opinions on DJM very slightly. Into the logbook it goes then, 17th, there you go, just above the Hornby Northern Belle and below the Dapol GWR railcar. I'm actually really happy with this one, really happy. The thing is though, obviously Kernow were selling these now for £69, which suggests that the RRP of 135 isn't all that necessary. It demonstrates that these models can be sold for less, and I would be very surprised if Kernow were selling these at a loss. Why would they? So if they are selling at a profit for 70 quid, why was the RRP that high? If they were £100 RRP, or 110 even, sold for 90, sold for 100, the score would be a lot better. I'd be much more impressed with the features. It's very strange, isn't it? Well folks, you've heard my opinion, now it's time for you guys to have your say. So in the poll, who wins? Is it Heljan or is it DJM? I think my answer is pretty clear, so I won't say anything, don't want to sway anybody's vote. But yeah, look at the evidence, take a look at the Heljan video if you like, and try and make an informed decision. And then I will look at the result in the next Model Railway News video and see what it tells us. I wonder if I'll be surprised. No, I won't, let's be honest. I think it's quite sad in a way, because this model demonstrates that DJM as a company had potential. It's quite a shame they had to shut down before they could iron out the kinks and start producing really top-notch models. because this model alone suggests that they could. They might well have got there eventually had they fixed the mechanisms and, you know, found ways to produce models for more reasonable prices, as the likes of Hornby and Oxford do. Yeah, it's a shame about that, but either way, at least this one's halfway decent. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you thought, folks. Did you like this one? Did you not? I'd be interested to hear. For now, thanks for watching. Thanks very much for your company. Have a good week, and I will see you very soon. Cheers, everybody.